I'm Katie Einstein. I'm an associate professor of political science here. And you've heard a few just great presentations which have outlined the way in which police are embedded in critical public services. And so I'm going to talk to you about another sort of really important social service in our city where the police have become essential to the implementation, and that is homelessness policy, right? So we know from just reams of research that the best way to reduce homelessness is to build more affordable housing and to provide more affordable housing to people who are unhoused, right? This is sort of the clear cut, many studies have shown this, right? But this is not what a lot of cities are doing, right? So we know that there are a lot of cities that are actually pursuing punitive policies, which worsen homelessness in a variety of different ways. Things like fines and fees make it harder for individuals to break cycles of homelessness, to have resources to secure housing. Incarceration may make it impossible to access a number of public benefits. And so one of the simple questions that I've sought out to understand with my colleague at Cornell, Charlie Willison, is just a basic question. How involved are the police in homelessness policy? Right? For people who have studied local politics and looked at cities, it's really difficult to get basic data on what cities are doing and how they're implementing policy. And so we use a couple of different data sources to try to understand what is happening on the ground and how cities are approaching their homelessness policy making. So we use data from a survey of mayors, and we also use national level data on homelessness outreach teams. And so this first piece of data here, this comes from a survey of mayors that we fielded in 2021 with the Initiative on Cities. We surveyed cities over 75,000, and I'm happy to talk with people in the chat part of this about sort of what the process of the survey is like and other pieces of data that we have. But one of the simple questions we asked was just how much do each of the following groups or entities influence your city's homelessness policy? And we asked it for a whole series of different non-governmental and governmental entities. And the police rose to the top. The police are clearly among the most influential groups in cities' homelessness policies. They actually ranked higher than people experiencing homelessness. We also asked mayors an open-ended question. Do you have homelessness staff on your city, right? And where do you house them? And again, a really high proportion of cities, over a fifth of them, have housed their homelessness staff in their police departments. And so again, these data points from mayors suggest a really strong role of policing in homelessness policymaking. But to further dig into this, right? So mayors are not necessarily always deeply and intimately knowledgeable about the nitty-gritty of policy implementation. We wanted to look at another important sort of governing body that really shapes homelessness services, right? So we looked at homeless outreach teams, which are groups of governmental and non-governmental workers who sort of collaborate to provide services to unhoused people. And they are funded in many cases by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So what we did is we collected information on homeless outreach teams for the 100 largest cities in the country. And we found that 63% of these cities had homeless outreach teams. Of cities with those homeless outreach teams, 73% of them included formal roles for police staffing or were actually housed in police departments. So this means that entities that are expressly designed to provide social services to homeless people overwhelmingly include the police in some capacity. We found that homeless outreach teams that involve the police are far more likely to include enforcement, such as fines or encampment removal, as part of their policy goals, right? So that's 76% of police-involved homeless outreach teams versus 12% of homeless outreach teams that do not involve the police. And so it suggests a really starkly different experience of homelessness service provision if you are in a community where those service teams involve the police, right? One important point, which I think has probably been brought home by a number of the other presentations you've already seen today, is that even when the police are involved in a sort of suggestive outreach capacity, The possibility of punitive enforcement is always there when the police are involved, right? And so as two ongoing extensions, we're actually conducting qualitative interviews with unhoused people to directly understand their experience with these homeless outreach teams and other government entities. And we're also conducting an analysis of administrative data in San Francisco to learn more about how often outreach calls translate to punitive outcomes. So thank you.